Everything in our universe is a complete lie. Let me show you. If you stood on a planet from the Sombrero Galaxy in our universe and pointed an all-powerful telescope at planet Earth, humans would not exist. And if you came much closer to planet 452c and had the same telescope, you might even be able to witness the birth of Jesus Christ himself. And if you went all the way to the very edge of the universe and pointed a telescope at planet Earth, you would see nothing at all. We wouldn't exist. In fact, our whole solar system and planet Earth itself wouldn't exist if you saw us from that perspective. You see, the universe as we perceive it is a complete lie, and this is not some government conspiracy theory or crazy idea, it's simply the science of perception. Let me explain. This concept starts in 1676, when Danish astronomer Ole Romer was studying the eclipse cycles of Jupiter's moon, Io. While things seemed normal on the surface, something very strange was about to be discovered. From his observations, he noticed something very peculiar. During his studies, Io's eclipses would happen at different times than what he was actually measuring. The mathematical calculations weren't adding up, and there were major irregularities. Sometimes they happened a little bit early, other times a little bit late, related to what the correct math predicted. And after further calculations, Romer discovered that this had absolutely nothing to do with Jupiter, and the delays in Io's moon cycle always happened based on how far the planet Earth was from Jupiter at the time. And despite being able to fully understand the principle, Romer correctly guessed that this delay was happening due to the time for light to travel across the vast distance between the two planets. Astronomer Ole Romer had been the first person to discover the concept of the speed of light. I have to say, quite impressive for a 1670s astronomer. Fast forward to the 19th century, and German astronomer Otto Wilhelm von Struve, with help from many esteemed and respected scientists, and with the additional help of some previous discoveries before him, Wilhelm and his team would manage to measure the depth of Romer's original discoveries, from the discrepancies of light related to distance. And this would eventually be coined into the measurement that we call a light year, or simply just how far the speed of light would be able to travel in an entire calendar year, which by the way can also be measured as about 5.88 trillion miles per year. You see, while light might feel instant in our day-to-day lives, it's actually not. In fact, it only feels that way because it's just so fast related to our sizes and distances on planet Earth. Due to the sheer speed at which light travels, it could cover the distance around our entire planet almost 750 times in 1 second. But compared to the scale of the universe, the speed of light is as slow as a drop of dust drifting through the wind. And to understand the impact of what this means for what's out there in our universe, first you need to understand how light happens and how we perceive things in our existence. You see, when light travels off of an object and into our eyes, it enters through the clear outer layer that we call the cornea. The cornea helps focus the light, which then passes through the circular opening in the center of our eye, which we call the pupil. Then the light reaches through to a flexible, transparent structure, which we call the lens, which further focuses the light to the rear of our eye onto our retina. And the retina is where all the magic happens. Here we have a layer of light-sensitive cells using rods and cones that detect the brightness and colors of the light, which then triggers millions of tiny little electrical impulses in a chemical reaction that sends an electric signal up into our brain through the optic nerve, which carries that signal from our eyes into the visual cortex of the brain, which finally interprets these signals and creates the images that we see. Now, from our perspective, this all happens in an instant. And no wonder, as the speed of light is measured to be 186,282 miles per second. And while light travels incredibly fast relative to us, the space in our universe is even more vast, with the current edge of the universe estimated to be 47 billion light years away. And so when we see something, we're simply just processing the light that is given off by an object, or the light that is a reflection of some other source of light nearby. And when we observe these objects in space, whether it's through a telescope or our own eyes, the light from those objects first have to travel all the way from its location in space to our planet Earth. And this is the light that we perceive. And so when we see something in space, something very far away, we're simply perceiving the light that has traveled through time. And as a result, we are quite literally seeing the past. A snapshot in time, if you will, which we also scientifically measure using the unit of light years. If something in space is 1 light year away, that means what we see from it happened 1 year ago. And if it's 1,000 light years away, that means what we're seeing happened 1,000 years ago. To put this into perspective, humans first appeared on Earth roughly about 6 million years ago in our current form. So if you stood somewhere in the universe that was 6 million light years away from planet Earth and pointed an all-powerful telescope at us that could observe everything, you would literally be able to witness human beings being born for the very first time. And our entire planet Earth itself came into existence about 4.6 billion years ago. So anything further than 4.6 billion light years away, and you point that telescope at us, and you would see nothing at all in the place of where we are now. And we can all agree 1 million years is a long-ass time. Entire civilizations, species, or if we go a bit further than 1 million years, even new forms of life itself could possibly be created. New planets formed, or new stars exploded in massive supernovas. But 99.999% of the entire universe is further than 1 million light years away from us. And just about 98% of the entire universe is more than 1 billion light years away from us. And meaning that 98% of what we see in space is just the light that was given off from those planets, those galaxies and universes billions of years into the past. And what we see in space is not actually what's happening. It's simply a snapshot in time, a remnant of the past, of something that happened billions of years ago and will forever be lost in the reality of what happens in space. But this goes both ways. Let's consider the reverse perspective for a moment. The edge of the universe is estimated to be 46, let's call it 47 billion light years away, meaning that 90% of the entire universe is in a place where it cannot perceive the existence of planet Earth at all, let alone humans or our modern life. And so we don't perceive anything close to what the reality is on the surface of other galaxies. And that means that other galaxies wouldn't perceive anything close to our reality either. Now, while space might be a billion light years away, what's only a fraction of a second away is you hitting that subscribe button. Because 40 billion years into the future, some alien race might point a telescope down at us on Earth, and they'll probably even be able to see you watching this video right now. And you wouldn't want this all-powerful future alien race to see that you watched a video without subscribing to it, would you? So hit the subscribe button right now, and I promise you we'll have some more amazing space documentaries coming very, very soon. Now, I want you to imagine yourself as that all-powerful alien species, born on a wonderful, safe, healthy planet 10 billion light years away from Earth, near the constellation group of Cetus. Your planet, let's call it Sequel, came into existence after a supernova stabilized your galaxy and created multiple habitable planets around your solar system. Your planet falls into what we call the safe zone near its star, which creates optimal temperatures and environments for creating life. And after about a calm 1 billion years on your planet, water is formed, little bacteria is created and evolved until more and more until another few billion years go by and your sentient species that you call humanes is evolved. Humanes are a smart, intelligent species with a resource-rich world. You develop and establish communication and intergalactic space travel after a few million years, including an epic machine capable of even defying physics to travel at the speed of light and observe the entire universe. A few more million years and you colonize your whole galaxy and you've conquered the universe as the dominant species. Or so you thought. Every day you stare out at the stars wondering, are we alone here? Is there truly no other life out there besides in our own galaxy? Eventually your species develops an all-powerful telescope capable of observing the entire universe down to the very atom upon which things are formed with. And you and all the other humane scientists, through very painful efforts, observe every atom throughout the entire universe, uncover the mysteries for how life is formed. And one day, by random chance, you go through our galaxy and see right where we live on planet Earth today. And you find, you guessed it, nothing at all. All you would see is the complete emptiness of the void, but an entire planet and solar system have been formed that so desperately wants to meet the humane species. But you simply cannot see them yet because the light from their universe hasn't reached you. Meanwhile, on planet Earth happening right now, near the constellation of Cetus, a massive supernova just occurred that was observed on the Hubble Space Telescope. NASA scientists rejoice at such an incredible discovery so far away in the universe, being one of the furthest observable events that has ever been recorded in human space history. However, the planet Sequel, from our perspective, literally does not exist, and humanes won't be found for the next 10 to 15 billion years. And we are left with the thought as well, does life in space really exist? Are we truly alone out there in the universe? And all of us combined, we're all left living in a universe filled with life everywhere that we can only perceive as being completely empty. And this idea gets even crazier when you realize that we're currently only able to really observe planets about 30,000 light years away from us. With our current technology, in fact, the furthest planets that we've discovered are these ones right here. These cute little planets are classified as hot Jupiters. They are gas giants that orbit very close to their stars, and they're about 27,710 light years away from Earth. And these right here are the furthest planets from Earth that we've ever fully discovered, which I will gladly remind you doesn't even account for 1/1,000,000th of our entire universe. You see, our ability for detecting planets right now, which is where life is capable of forming in the first place, is extremely limited. In fact, it's outrageously difficult. And so we're not really capable of properly observing if life in the universe exists either. To find planets, scientists use something called the transit method, which is just observing for the dips in light when a planet crosses in front of its star in relation to our perspective, as well as something called the radial velocity method, which is just measuring the gravitational influences on stars to predict where planets probably exist. These are the most reliable methods we have for finding planets far away right now, and they don't even really technically observe planets. We just observe stars and do some calculations based on where planets are probably going to be. As a result, the majority of planets we've discovered are within a few thousand light years away from us only. And due to these observational limitations, it becomes increasingly challenging to detect planets at much greater distances. Remember, the universe is absolutely massive, and planets similar to us on Earth are outstandingly small relative to the size of things. We just can't properly see things that are this small from that far away, and our observations have to be done at a macro level of stars and galaxies, solar systems, of which are usually just 1,000,000 to 1,000,000,000 times larger than their planets. Our sun alone in our solar system is 1.3 million times larger than planet Earth. So perhaps there is an alien society out there that's observing our solar system and sees some tiny specks of dips of light as we complete our full orbit around the sun. And all they can see is, hey, well, there's probably a planet there, but life in space, that doesn't exist. And so in my opinion, the reality that life in the universe exists outside of Earth is extremely high. I mean, scientists estimate that there could be as many as hundreds of trillions, quadrillions, or even quintillions of planets in our universe, but we've only been able to properly observe about 5,600 of them for remnants of life. That's just one planet out of every 2 billion in the universe. And the rest of what we can see isn't entirely true to begin with. So who are we as humans to so confidently say, oh yeah, life in space, that doesn't exist? There couldn't possibly be aliens in our universe. I can't say anything for you, but for me, I just can't get behind that perspective. And as well, another reason why we can't find life in space is that because from our perspective, 90, even 95% of the entire universe doesn't exist yet, or at least we're not observing it in its current form. And at the same time, we also can't see the planets from the past either. Entire civilizations, galaxies may have existed and then had their stars explode into a million pieces a billion years ago, and we would just never be able to tell. NASA recently announced a fascinating mission in relation to this. They launched a probe to go observe Jupiter's moon, Europa, searching for signs of life and prior history of life beneath the icy surface. You see, on Europa, the entire moon is covered in a huge sheet of ice, but recently we discovered that underneath that ice is a liquid ocean, almost certainly filled with salt and oxygen, very similar to the oceans we have on planet Earth. And although conditions for creating life, as far as we can tell, seems to be some sort of environment of water plus energy under some perfect conditions for an extremely long period of time. But it's still possible, and even in our very own solar system, we aren't sure that Earth is the only place that life has ever existed on. And now, NASA is officially investigating and has already launched their mission to search for further signs of life, and to develop our understanding of what life is needed to form and how the planets and stars can influence things. You see, some conspiracy theorists might go a little bit too far and jump the gun a bit and say that we found proof. Aliens, we've already observed them. Now for me, I have to say, just my opinion, it's very clear that life in the universe exists right now in some form, or perhaps existed at some point in the past until their star exploded or their planet's atmosphere deteriorated. But unfortunately, we just can't see them, and they can't see us, and since it was about 1 billion years for life on planet Earth to first form, over 98% of the universe is more than 1 billion light years away from us and couldn't see life on our planet even if they had that magical, all-powerful telescope. And even just seeing our solar system nearby, this gets even more insane. You see, a long ass time ago, our neighbor planet Mars used to be filled with water. Flowing water of rivers and even oceans. Originally, Mars had a strong enough atmosphere and conditions to possibly create life too, if it had been given enough time. Remember, Earth went over 1 billion years under perfect conditions before life was able to form. But unfortunately, due to having a poor magnetic field and lower gravity, as a result of the planet being a smaller mass compared to Earth, accelerated by factors such as solar wind and radiation from the sun, Mars's atmosphere eventually deteriorated and withered away until it became the red planet that we see now. And life on Mars technically could have existed and just went completely extinct by the time humans came into existence. And we have even further proof that water used to exist on other places in our very own solar system, with Mars, as well as potentially Venus, and Jupiter's moon Europa has water right now. Planets over time, they evolve, they grow, they change, and eventually they deteriorate and are destroyed. And there's only a limited amount of time for life to be created, but it just requires a huge amount of time for it to happen in the first place. As regardless of whatever happens on any random planet, the star that is needed to provide the energy for that life to form will eventually explode in a supernova, wiping out that solar system and all chance for life to exist there, after around, well, tens of billions of years at least. But let's say humans went extinct right now. It wouldn't be all that long for traces of us to cease to exist. After just a few thousand years, most buildings and structures would be destroyed. After 100,000 years, everything from our world would have eroded away into dust. And within 1 million years, everything left over from us would be deeply buried in the dirt. And within just 10 million years, all possible traces of our existence would cease to exist. And the only way to actually prove that humans once lived would be to fly a spaceship, land on planet Earth, and actually dig up preserved things such as fossils that could stand the test of time. And so entire species and civilizations probably existed in our very solar system, or certainly could even have been on just any of the planets that we could observe right now, and those civilizations may have been fully formed, rise, and then fell and died off due to changes in the planet they lived on, or disasters in their solar system, and we would just never be able to tell. And almost everything we observe from space today is a complete lie. It doesn't exist, and it's separated by millions and billions of years from actual reality. And thus, it may be most accurate to say that life out there in space, it exists. It just can't see us yet. And everything that all those aliens can see in space, it's a lie for them too. Now stop right there. YouTube actually wants to serve you an ad at the end of this video, so hurry, watch this other space documentary video right here and save yourself from this danger before the video ends. This has been Jeremy B with Space Lore, signing off.